Hi there. My name is J.Dalton Jennings. I'm a writer who has published two novels. One is called Solomon's Arrow, a science fiction novel, and the other is the 2018 winner of the American Fiction Awards for Best Psychological Thriller, The Disassembled Man. Both are really good books, in my opinion. Then I'm the author. I kind of have to feel that way, don't I? Anyway, this is a video about the process of revising a novel. My very first novel I wrote, which is yet to be published, is now titled The Wheel of Pain. It takes place 2,000 years ago in the Far East. And it's about 200,000 words long, so when I was trying to get it published, I was kind of thinking, well, first time author with a 200,000 word novel, I doubt seriously if it's going to get published. Seldom do they ever get published when they're that long, and hardly ever for a first time author. But now I have two novels under my belt that have been published, and one is an award winner. Haven't sold very many copies, unfortunately, but then I'm not much of a marketer. I'm a little too lazy for that. So if you've come here to learn about marketing, you're out of luck. I still need to learn a little bit about that myself. But as far as revision is concerned, when you're revising a novel, it's a very important thing to do. You have to revise, and then revise again, then revise again, revise again, and then you finally get to the point where you feel like you can't revise it any farther. Then you put it aside and start working on something else. And then you come back and realize, okay, now I can look at my novel with fresh eyes and hopefully revise it again. This is what I've been doing with The Wheel of Pain. And it's been a few years since I worked on it. And it's coming along quite well. I found a fair amount of places where I can revise, and it's actually turning the novel into a better work for what it's worth. And it's a really good novel. It's a long novel, but it's well worth it. And plenty of philosophy and action, and even a beheading. Isn't that something? But I figured I'd let you in on the process of revising a novel. Since I'm in my revision state, one more time revising this, which when I first wrote it, I revised it quite a bit, trying to get it the way I wanted it. Finally, and this is the novel that I got my agent on, Jeff Schmidt, of New York, of NY Creative Agency. And he said he loved this novel. And while he was trying to sell it, I finished up my second novel that I wrote. And sent it to him, and he sold it in 2 weeks. Isn't that awesome? But still haven't been able to sell this one. And I've sold another one since then. So my award-winning novel, The Disassembled Man. But anyway, so I figured I'd let you into the process and go over a little bit of this novel while I'm in the process of revising this one section, and let you know my thought processes on how to do it. I have my handy dandy laptop there, which I do my writing on, and I'm in my position laying down on the couch with my laptop on my little lap table, And this is the way I write. Lazy lazy AF, as they say these days, without getting too graphic. And but that's how I do it. Other people do it in sitting at a desk or on a typewriter. I do it this way, where I can relax and work on it with nothing getting in the way except myself. And I'll spend 4 or 5 hours, sometimes 6 on here, writing a novel. And by the time the 4 or 5 hours are up, my brain is a pile of mush. Because writing is hard. It's not easy like some people think. It's hard AF. So here we go. I am now currently on page 371, which is about halfway through the book. And I'm right here looking at rising to his feet. Dinesh crossed the room and walked out through the back door. That doesn't need any revision. That sounds pretty damn good. Both women turned to each other and shrugged. For the next few minutes they worked in silence, lost in their own thoughts. Tamden was scooping the eggs into their respective plates when Dinesh entered the back door carrying a hammer, a sack of nails, some hardware, and a padlock. Without a word to the women, he climbed to the second floor. Shortly thereafter, hammering was heard coming from one of the bedrooms. That paragraph sounds pretty good to me. I'll go over it one more time just to make sure that that's the way I want it. Because sometimes I come across a paragraph that sounds good to me. I don't have to take out a word here or shorten a sentence or lengthen a sentence or change a word. It all just sounds good to me. Rising to his feet, Dinesh crossed the room and walked out through the back door. Both women turned to each other and shrugged. For the next few minutes they worked in silence, lost in their own thoughts. Tamden was scooping the eggs in... Okay. Tamden was scooping the eggs onto their respective plates. Something about that doesn't quite sound right to me, so I'm going to try and figure out what it is. Tamden was scooping the eggs onto their respective plates. Onto sounds a bit odd to me for some reason. Tamden was scooping the eggs onto their plates. Tamden was scooping the eggs onto their plates. Tamden was scooping their eggs onto the respective Tamden was scooping the eggs onto the respective plates. I think I'm going to get rid of the word respective. See how that sounds. Tamden was scooping the eggs onto their plates when Dinesh entered the back door carrying a hammer, a sack of nails, some hardware, and a padlock. Sometimes a long word and wanting to be a little bit specific doesn't really work for the way the flow goes in your novel, because flow is very important. Writing a novel, it's almost like writing a composition of music. There's a cadence to it. There's short sentences and long sentences, and some very short sentences and some very long sentences. And a lot of times, some very short sentences can denote action, and some long sentences can denote suspense. You sometimes want to have a longer sentence to make the what you're trying to convey more suspenseful. And sometimes you want to jump and cut quickly for the action to denote the movement in the reader's mind. And some words just throw off the flow. As much as you want to keep that word because you like the way it sounds by itself, it sometimes doesn't work in the sentence. So you have to get rid of it. Without a word to the women, he climbed to the second floor. Shortly thereafter, Okay, I think I'm going to add something right here. Shortly thereafter, the women heard hammering. Yeah. Shortly thereafter, they heard. Already used the women. Just in the previous sentence, I used the phrase the women. So I don't want to use that in the next sentence. I want to use they heard hammering. Shortly thereafter, they heard hammering coming from one of the bedrooms. Without a word to the women, he climbed to the second floor. Shortly thereafter, they heard hammering coming from one of the bedrooms. Tamden was scooping the eggs onto their plates when Dinesh entered the back door carrying a hammer, a sack of nails, some hardware, and a padlock. Without a word to the women, he climbed to the second floor. Shortly thereafter, they heard hammering coming from one of the bedrooms. See, that sounds better. There's a better flow to it. I added a couple words and rearranged another word, subtracted another word in another sentence, and now that paragraph sounds the way I want it. There's better flow to it. Now comes a little piece of dialogue. What could that horrible man be doing? Cynthia asked, a puzzled frown on her face. I have a semicolon, but I want an apostrophe there. What could that horrible man be doing? Cynthia asked, with a puzzled frown on her face. It sounds better. What could that horrible man be doing? Cynthia asked, with a puzzled frown on her face. Oops, sorry about that. I picked my nose right in front of you. Don't worry, I didn't mine any gold, so I ain't gonna be picking and flicking in front of you, at least. Placing the skillet down near the hearth, Tamden looked over at the stairs. I have a sneaking suspicion. Come, child, let's find out if I'm right. When the two women reached the top of the stairs, Dinesh was leaving Singha's room, hammer in hand. A sinking feeling grew in the pit of their stomachs as they watched him nail a bracket to the door and the matching hardware to the door frame. I want to add an apostrophe in that sentence. A sinking feeling grew in the pit of their stomachs as they watched him nail a bracket to the door and the matching hardware to the door frame. Once he was finished, I think I might want to take out he was finished. See how that sounds. Once finished, Dinesh explained his actions. Once he was finished, Dinesh explained his actions. Once finished, Dinesh explained his actions. I nailed shut the window in your room. That way you aren't tempted to escape in the middle of the night. He then pointed to the door. These brackets are designed to hold this padlock, he said with a grin. I'll use it to lock you inside while I'm sleeping. That all sounds pretty good. A little creepy, but good. But what if we need to find a damned bucket? He snapped, rubbing the back of his neck. Dinesh grumbled under his breath. Okay, something doesn't sound right. Find a damn bucket, he snapped. Okay, I think I'm going to change something here. I think I'll put, find a damn bucket, he snapped. Dinesh rubbed the back of his neck and grumbled under his breath. No. I think I'll take this period, put an apostrophe, and do it this way. Just lengthen that sentence a little bit. Okay. Find a damn bucket, he snapped, rubbing the back of his neck. Dinesh grumbled under his breath, making a disparaging remark about the ungrateful nature of women. Knowing there was... Okay, that doesn't sound too bad. But what if we need to find a damn bucket, he snapped, rubbing the back of his neck. Dinesh grumbled under his breath, making a disparaging remark about the ungrateful nature of women. Dinesh is kind of an asshole. Pardon my French. Knowing there was no point in arguing with the stubborn brute, Tamden threw up her hands and marched to the stairs. She glanced at Singa. Okay. She glanced back at Singa. Knowing there was no point in arguing with the stubborn brute, Tamden threw up her hands and marched to the stairs. She glanced back at Singa, whose hands... Okay. She glanced back at Singa, who had her hands on her hips. Well, there's definitely something missing there. Marched the stairs. She glanced back at Singa, whose hands were on her hips. Okay. She glanced back at Singa, whose hands were on her hips. Singa, whose hands were on her hips. Okay. Knowing there was no point in arguing with the stubborn brute, Tamden threw up her hands, marched to the stairs, and glanced back at Singa, whose hands were on her hips. Okay. That sounds better. I'm going to take care of that right now. Knowing there is no point in arguing with the stubborn brute, Tamden threw up her hands, marched to the stairs, and glanced back at Singa, whose hands were on her hips. She was glowering at Dinesh. The young girl shook her head and emitted an audible huff and spun around to follow her mother. Tamden was relieved. See, that's a short sentence. Not one about action, just a short sentence to actually build a little tension around the act of being relieved. The young girl shook her head and emitted an audible huff, then spun around to follow her mother. Tamden was relieved. She would much rather her daughter help finish preparing breakfast than get into a confrontation with their so obviously demented captor. Okay. I'm going to save that because 20 minutes is long enough for you to be listening to me talk about revising a book. This was a good example on how to revise a novel. You revise it until you get the flow right and the cadence right, and take out any words that detract, switch some words around if you need to, and like the old saying goes, sometimes you have to kill your babies. Like I killed that one word. Wasn't much of a baby, but wait a second. Sometimes you have to kill your darlings, not your babies. Good Lord. That's the saying. Sometimes you have to kill your darlings. Jeez. But anyway, like I was saying, that wasn't much of a darling, that word. So I was happy to kill it. But there are times when you find an entire paragraph you have to cut out. A sentence. A word is easy. Sentence a little bit harder to cut. And a paragraph even harder to cut out. But sometimes you have to do it. Because no matter how beautiful it sounds to you, it can take away from the storyline. Sometimes it throws people out of the novel. They start thinking about that instead of what's going on in the book. Or, it just kind of throws people. Sometimes you just have to get rid of it. But the best thing I can say is just keep at it. Perseverance is one of the most important things that an author can have, is to persevere. Because most of the time, unless they're already established and making good money, people aren't going to have a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to do what the author is going to be able to do what they have planned to do and craft a story that's a good enough story to get published. People just don't have confidence in writers like they do in other professions. They think, well, I'll believe it when I see it. So it's important to have people in your life that are on your side, that have your back, that you can share your work with and get opinions. People that they might not be confident that you'll get something published, but they have confidence in you. That's always a good thing. And so my main advice is to persevere in your writing and in your revisions, because revising your novel is as important as writing it. That's where you shape it, you play with it, you get it into being exactly the way you want it. And sometimes that takes a lot of time. It took me 2 years to write this novel, and now it's taken me a few months to revise it, because I'm wanting to get it just right. I'm only halfway through. So if you're impatient, writing is probably not for you, because getting a novel whipped into shape takes some time. Some of the greatest novels ever written took years and years to write. So persevere, and you too may become an award-winning writer just like me, J.Dalton Jennings. Thank you. Have a great day.